Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I have had a passing interest in dolls for a few years, and I think the same can be said for a lot of people in Lolita fashion. Though there was a period where the Western community rejected the comparison between Lolita fashion and dolls, I think specifically because of that kind of disastrous TLC Living Doll episode. The aesthetic of dolls has always been a part of Lolita fashion, and I do think has always been an influence on the community at large, especially in Asia, where the comparison between Lolita and dolls I don't think ever really had the same type of negative link. Personally, I just find dolls very endearing, very nostalgic. The act of dressing up a doll and making a story for it was one of my earliest forms of creativity. And dolls not only influenced Lolita fashion, but Lolita fashion has influenced or been a part of the doll collector space for a long time. So today I want to talk about some collaborations between doll brands and Lolita fashion brands. This is not going to be an all-encompassing video. I'm not going to talk about like every collaboration that there's been out there, and I'm only going to be talking about official ones because there are so many releases from doll brands that have the aesthetic of Lolita fashion but are not like in collaboration with an official Lolita brand. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some dolls that I think are interesting, and hopefully we can learn both about Lolita fashion history and doll history through it. Just a quick note, there has been a collaboration between a few Lolita brands and Barbie where dresses were released, but I'm specifically talking in this video about the doll releases, not like the Lolita fashion clothes for human being releases. So I'm not going to be talking about the Barbie releases in this video. I'm just going to be talking about like actual dolls. I do have my little doll here. His name is Wraith. He's not an official, brand collaboration or anything, so he won't really be mentioned in this video, but he's going to be here keeping me company and helping me teach you all about doll history. Part 1, ball jointed dolls. First, if we're talking about ball jointed dolls and doll collecting in general, we need to talk about Volks. They are the creators of the Dollfie / Super Dollfie line and are essentially the blueprint for the modern ball jointed doll. They released their first BJD in 1999, and if you don't know what a ball jointed doll looks like, I will put one on screen, but essentially it's referring to the type of connection between the joints that the doll uses. The Dollfie line is so popular that the ball jointed doll community at large uses their measurements to mean any doll of a certain size. These dolls typically range between 40 to 60 centimeters. For example, my lovely little guy here is 21 centimeters, so they are about double his size, and this is probably the most popular type of ball jointed doll for adult collectors at the moment. The Dollfie line has collaborated with Lolita fashion brands numerous times, including H Naoto, Black Piece Now, Atelier Pierrot, and Baby the Stars Shine Bright. And today there is 3 specific doll releases that I want to talk about. The first one is the Volks Super Dollfie Momoko Ryugasaki Kamikaze Girls doll. She was released alongside the movie in 2004, and there were only 101 dolls officially released, with the first being owned by Momoko's actor. So this doll is extremely rare. That's a very, very limited release. Given that she came out 20 years ago, she is quite hard to find at this point. Momoko was originally released for 88k yen, which adjusted for inflation is about $1,000, and she included, the body, the eyes, the hair as is typical for a doll, and a full set of clothes. The dress that she's wearing is the robe à la française, which was a Baby the Stars Shine Bright release from 2004 and was worn by Momoko's actor while promoting Kamikaze Girls. So there are pictures of the doll and the actor matching in this dress. So when you bought the doll, the outfit set came with her, and that included like the OP, the headdress, socks, shoes, petticoat, etc. But there were also 5 sets of items / clothing that were released to buy separately. There was also an Ichigo doll that was made for display purposes, but she was never released, and she was made using a pre-existing face mold for the doll, whereas the Momoko doll is an original one that was created just for her. Like I said, she is very rare now. There are not a lot of listings that you can find that have sold for her. Of course, the tendency on Japanese sites is to delete sold listings, so it does make searching for it a bit hard. I did find one on Yahoo Auctions that is currently going for $5,000 though, so that gives you an idea of how difficult she might be to find. And 20 years later, BTSSB did another collaboration with Super Dollfie, this time to release 2 dolls and, again, a bunch of clothing items. To be clear, this isn't like their first collaboration in 20 years. There were others previously, but they didn't include dolls, and I just thought it would be cute to show the difference between the Momoko from 2004 and these new dolls from 2024, exactly 20 years between the 2 releases. So these dolls are called Yumepi and Matcha, and both of them come with, again, a full set of clothing. So their outfit sets include a dress, a JSK for both of them, a blouse, one of them has detachable sleeves, a petticoat, bloomers, panties, OTKs, shoes, and a headdress. They do also have detachable hair clips, which means they have 2 hairstyle options technically, and they were a little bit more expensive than the Momoko doll upon release, but again, they do come with more items since Momoko had an OP. They have JSK and blouse and the hair clips, so I think that's pretty fair and a good example of how consistent the Volks doll lines have been in terms of pricing. And like I mentioned before, there were also clothing sets that were released separately, including a winter coat and the iconic heart-shaped bag. I really, really love these dolls. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I love the face up, I love their eyes, and the dresses are beautiful. Of course, these are both also BTS SB dresses. I know the red one is the Best Wishes series. Virtually, I don't remember the name of the pink one, but I will put on screen. I think if I was gonna own one, I would want Yumepi, the blonde one. She's just really cute, and I love that perfect like blonde, honey blonde tone of hair, and I love her dress and pink, of course, but both of them are really gorgeous. They go for around double their release price now, which is about 2,000 plus Canadian. Just so you know, whenever I'm talking about dollars in this video, I'm talking about Canadian dollars and any other currency I would mention specifically. And last but not least, I want to talk about the Volks X Mana-sama doll. This was technically not a collaboration with Moime Moitié. It is specifically like a Mana-sama doll, but you know, it's wearing Moime Moitié clothes, and Moime Moitié and Mana-sama are basically the same brand, so to me at least, like I associate them together. So I'm talking about it anyway. This doll is wearing the original Nun OP, as far as I can tell, the one from 1999, since it seems to be the only one with the 3 tiers. As far as I can tell on the library, the others have a band of white at the bottom, but not like the black and white tiers that this one has. But Moitié diehards, please correct me if I'm wrong, if you're even watching this video. And of course, Moitié accessories like the gloves, the headdress, and the OTKs and the shoes. This doll has an absolutely gorgeous and simple face up, in my opinion. It's so effective, and I love the very, very, very white, almost grayish skin with the blue makeup. Super beautiful. The ringlets are amazing. Obviously, this is just a beautiful doll. And of course, it is super, super, super rare as well. I'm not just talking about the fact that it is probably beloved in people's collections and not for sale. It was limited to 31 dolls upon release, with the first being owned by Mana-sama, meaning there's only 30 dolls in circulation, which, as you can imagine, is not a lot. This doll was 130k yen upon release, so relatively pricey, I would say, and I would assume would probably go for a lot more if it was sold. The only time I could find a record of one being sold was for a charity auction, which means it went for like very, very high in the many of thousands. But yeah, it's a very hard doll to find. I have seen people recreating it, since that is probably the only way to own it, or at least get close to owning it. Moving on from Volks, another ball jointed doll collaboration I want to talk about is Luts doll and Baroque. So both of these brands are Korean brands, Luts being the ball jointed doll brand and Baroque being the Lolita fashion brand. And this release was specifically for an outfit set and not for the doll itself. This release was for the Juliette dress, which was a pre-existing design from Baroque, and I believe the set came with the bonnet and a petticoat. I think this is a really beautiful release. Baroque has designs that lean very, like, I would say classic Lolita in not the sub-style, but more the sense of they are very typical or like blueprint type Lolita dresses. You know what I mean? They're very like classic to the image of Lolita fashion. They appeal to like kind of old school sensibilities or classic and gothic and sweet sensibilities in a way that can appeal to many different like tastes. I feel they're just very Lolita to me. It's a bit difficult to explain, but I hope you understand what I mean. This piece I do think is a good example of that because it is relatively simple but has strong construction and beautiful details, and I feel like it really could be coordinated gothic, classic, or sweet depending on your styling, and I think that's just very impressive and very versatile. It looks beautiful in doll form, of course, as well. This was released in black and red, and I can't believe the amount of detail on both the dress, the bonnet, and the petticoat. The petticoat especially is very detailed for a doll petticoat. I've seen a bunch. They're usually just tubes of organza for obvious reasons, but this like looks like a real Lolita petticoat, so I find that very impressive. The set was about 115 Canadian upon release. That's 160k won, which is, you know, Korean currency. Those are my two ball jointed doll brands I wanted to talk about. Next, let's move on to the longer section, which is fashion dolls. Now, a fashion doll usually refers to a doll that is complete upon release. Ball jointed dolls typically are not fashion dolls because of their size, because of their customizability, and their exclusivity, where I feel like fashion dolls, from what I've seen, typically refers to dolls that kind of exist for mass market or are complete upon release with like hair, painted on face, and an outfit for collectors, and usually refers to dolls that are between 30 to 20 centimeters. The easiest reference for what a fashion doll is Barbie, of course, but in the West, you know, there's also like Bratz, Monster High, Shadow High, all of those kinds of things are fashion dolls, and they're typically divided into Playline, which is the dolls made for children, and collector's dolls, which is usually for adults or meant to be kept in a box.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God! Yes, Gaga, you look so good.
So that's just a little rundown of what a fashion doll is. Of course, like I said, the shining example of a fashion doll is Barbie. But the only doll in the world who can compete with Barbie and exist in her lane is Licca-chan, or Licca-chan. And she is a Japanese fashion doll created by Takara Tomy. She has been in production since 1967, and Licca-chan and Barbie are the two longest running doll lines currently existing, I believe, of any doll space, but I know specifically in the fashion doll space. Licca-chan is the reason that Barbie is not popular in Japan. She dominates there. She is all over the toy stores. I think she's super, super cute, and I really love these dolls. And of course, similar to Barbie, she has, you know, family and friends as part of her doll line, including Jenny, who was originally marketed as her older sister and who has a complex history of her own, because at one point Jenny was Barbie and then became Jenny, but that's kind of irrelevant to this video. The reason we're talking about Jenny is because she has had not one, but two, but 5 releases with Lolita fashion brands. So let's talk about the first set of collaborations, which was between Jenny and Cara magazine. This was 3 different Lolita fashion brand collaborations, and there were no other brands included, so the full collaboration is these 3 brands. These dolls were released in 2008 and the 3 brands that were collaborating with Jenny are Algonquin, which I'm not sure if it exists anymore, it may be defunct, Metamorphose de Fille, and Angelic Pretty. These dolls were released in 2008 and retailed for $150. So as you can tell, they were collector dolls marketed to adults. The $150 price point is pretty standard though for Jenny and Licca-chan collector dolls. Not exceptional at all. Each Jenny of these three has a custom face up with different colors and hair, and of course a beautiful outfit set. I believe these dolls also came with a brand box, maybe like a shoe box or something. I've seen it in some of the photos of secondhand listings. And I believe it also came with a copy of a mini doll-sized Kara magazine with the doll on the cover. Interestingly enough, I don't believe the dresses that the dolls are wearing or the accessories are necessarily replicas of real ones. Typically speaking, these brand collaborations feature real dresses for obvious reasons, right? Like, they want to sell their brand, they want to include their brand, but I can't find any of these dresses from the original brands. I'm pretty sure the Angelic Pretty one is not real. I don't remember an exact dress that looks like this, even though it does seem to feature Chocolat-chan, which is their little kitty cat mascot who hasn't been featured in like 84 years. But obviously they all fit the brand images perfectly. I think all of these dolls are really, really beautiful. For obvious reasons, I would kill for the Angelic Pretty doll. All three of these dolls go for upwards of $500 to $600 currently, most of them still being in box and in very good condition since they were collector items from the beginning. I love these dolls. If I were going to collect fashion dolls, it would probably be like pre-2000s Barbies or Licca-chan and Jenny dolls. But I'm not really willing to bite the bullet and start collecting them because I don't need another expensive all-consuming hobby. One doll for me is enough for now. Another collector doll, this time released in 2002, was Jenny and Victorian Maiden. She's around the same price as the Kara dolls, but she does go for less expensive secondhand. Not sure why she's less popular, but she ranges from about $150 to $200 on average, and that's pretty good considering that's about retail price. But of course, since she's an older doll, she's somewhat rare, but I have seen her pop up here and there, so a bit more accessible than some of the other dolls we're talking about today. But unlike the Kara dolls, this dress I do believe is based on a real Victorian Maiden one. As far as I can tell, it is very, very similar to the corduroy OP, which was released in 2001, so it would make sense. Obviously, the only difference is this dress is not made out of corduroy for the doll. It's probably just like a polyester or some kind of cotton. And she came in a coffin-shaped box, which is so cute. I love it so much. I think of all the Jennies in collaboration with Lolita brands, she has my favorite hair and makeup. I love the darker makeup with the like blonde hair and the very full ringlets. I am tempted to get her when she pops up. I do feel like her price is pretty reasonable for a collector doll. But again, I'm just very hesitant to start collecting dolls because I feel like it may never end. And lastly, I thought it would be interesting to include this much more recent release of Jenny because she is a Playline doll. So this one was in collaboration with Baby the Stars Shine Bright. She was released in 2014, and by Playline I mean she was originally created to be marketed to children, and she sold for under $30, which obviously is a lot cheaper than the previous dolls mentioned. And you can see the difference in terms of the quality of her accessories that she comes with. The dress is much simpler. The hair is much simpler. Everything is just, less expensive looking. And the doll does not have full posability either. But interestingly, that does not make her more accessible to collectors because she retails for around $200 to $300, which is really expensive for a Playline doll, but is not an unknown phenomenon for these Jenny and Licca-chan dolls at all.
What the hell? Oh my God, no way.
I'm not really sure what contributed to such a drastic price increase in 10 years. Maybe it's just the fact that she's unavailable now. Maybe it's the fact that she's wearing a very, very popular release. She's wearing Sugar Bouquet by Baby the Stars Shine Bright. But either way, she will not be showing up in my house anytime soon. She was also relatively limited in how to obtain her when she came out. She was sold in person at the Baby Osaka store and online from the official Takara Tomy website. I am not sure how limited she was though, or like how many of these were produced. Normally the Playline ones are not that limited, but who knows since it's a brand collaboration. She's very cute. It is just sad that she goes for so much now, or else she probably, would be a good place to start collecting dolls for people interested in Lolita brand collabs. But let's move on from Jenny, and now let's talk about Pullip, who is probably the doll queen of brand collaborations in general, not exclusive to Lolita fashion, but boy does she have a lot of Lolita brand collabs anyway. Pullip was originally created in South Korea in 2003 and was known for their original dolls, which had very, very detailed outfits and very, unique and wide range of themes. But nowadays is more known for their brand collaborations, like I said, and their nostalgia line, which is kind of like revamps of older dolls. Like I said, Pullip has a lot of collabs. If you search Pullip on Low Library, you will see a bunch of them with all sorts of different brands ranging in styles. If I had to guess, I would assume that Pullip is the most well-known doll brand for Lolitas who may own one or two dolls but are not into doll collecting, just because of the sheer volume of Pullips again, and the fact that they have collaborated with so many different Lolita brands means that there is kind of something for everyone depending on your taste. In terms of pricing and availability, they just are more accessible than most other doll brands. And as someone who obviously spends most of my time hunting for angelic pretty when it comes to Lolita fashion, these Pullip and angelic pretty dolls are the ones that I see the most often. Now, Pullip is a specific character, and these angelic pretty collaborations are actually Dal and Buell. So in the Pullip verse, Dal is Pullip's boyfriend's younger sister, and Buell is Dal's best friend. So they are made to be younger than Pullip. They are children. I think Pullip is like a teenager or something. But anyway, they have a much more cutesy face mold, chubbier cheeks, smaller lips. I think they even have like bigger, rounder eyes. So generally speaking, they're just kind of made to look a little bit more childlike and pouty. So the AP collabs feature Toy Parade in two colorways, white and pink, Dreamy Dollhouse, and Wonder Cookie, as well as, of course, the iconic Sugary Carnival. These dolls came out in either 2009 or 2011, and they all retailed for 13k yen, which is a pretty good price, in my opinion, for the level of detail that's included in the clothing and the doll in general. These dolls are relatively easy to find. I would say they pop up like a couple of times a year. The Sugary Carnival one is probably the easiest to find, and they do not go for astronomical prices, all things considered. So again, I do feel like they're pretty accessible. For me, the highlight of all these releases is Buell 6 tiny pony bag. It's so cute. It's just so ridiculous. It's like a pony bag already can't fit anything, but imagine a doll pony bag. It's so tiny and cute. I also just like her the best. I really like the dark eye makeup and the darker blue eyes with the pastels and the pastel hair. I think she's super, super cute. And I'm going to put various Pullip releases on screen. Like I said, there have been so many Pullips with so many different brands. Whatever your favorite Japanese brand is, there is probably a Pullip for it. Especially Innocent World, you're in luck because I think there's been a couple. These dolls range in price upon release, just depending on their complexity and how many accessories they come with. And when I was researching for this video, I did find a lot of these dolls available on Mercari, Mandarake, Jollyteria, so they are pretty easy to come by. I do have to make a hateful shout out to the Victorian Maiden Pullip because she's balding, and I do not understand why they chose this hairstyle with the bonnet. It just does not look good, in my opinion. I don't love it. I don't live for it. And in the wise words of my good classic Lolita friend Prince, Victorian Maiden just can't do anything right lately. Next, let's talk about Blythe. Blythe has an interesting history because she was actually released in America in 1972 and was only sold for a year before gaining popularity through fashion magazine photography with dolls by a specific photographer whose name I cannot recall at this time, but there have been better videos on the history of Blythe than this one. Either way, she ended up in the hands of Takara Tomy, who started selling her in 2001 as Neo Blythe, which is basically the doll we know today, except for the fact that now Blythe is produced by a Good Smile company. Blythes sell as full dolls with outfits, with multiple sets of eye colors usually, because they have a mechanism where the eyes can change direction and color. So there's like 4 eyes in them. I don't exactly know how it works. It sounds a little creepy. But Blythes have been popular for a long time as customizable dolls. And the thing that's interesting about the Blythe community is fakies or factory dolls are pretty widely accepted in the community. Most people, I would say, especially in the West, from what I've seen, buy factory Blythes, which are what they sound like. They are the Blythe bodies from the factories, which are alleging to produce the authentic Blythes and just selling the extras or the ones produced from the same mold. Obviously, the ethics of this are debatable. I think most Lolitas would not necessarily be super interested in doing that, but it is a pretty widely accepted part of Blythe customizing because the factory Blythes go for significantly less than a brand new one. Anyway, let's not get too much into doll discourse, and let's just move on to the collaborations, of which there are surprisingly few, to be honest. Junie Moon has collaborated with 3 or 2.5 Lolita brands, depending on how separately you see Baby the Starshine Bright and Alice and the Pirates as brands. Junie Moon is kind of the official releaser or creator of Blythe clothes. They have a couple of brick and mortar stores in Japan. And like I said, they've collaborated with Baby the Starshine Bright, Alice and the Pirates, and Angelic Pretty. Their release from Baby the Starshine Bright was, and I have to read this off my laptop, Moonlit Forest Aurora Soiree. Alice and the Pirates was Sugar Plum Fairy Queen, and Angelic Pretty's release was Melody Toys. These are all real dresses, and they are all just doll-sized versions of the real dresses. All were released as sets with other items in the release, like OTKs and a headdress, different types of headdress depending on the dress. As for actual dolls, there have been 2, as far as I can find, releases with Baby the Starshine Bright, and interestingly enough, both are winter themed. First is Yuki no Namida Hime. Yuki no Namida Hime. First is Yuki no Namida Hime, I hope I got that right, wearing the Tear of the Snow Princess OP, and the other doll is Hoshinoda Hime wearing the Wish on a Star OP from 2011. The dolls come with various accessories as part of their outfit set, and Hoshinoda Hime's includes a mic for some reason. I can't really figure out why. Personally, Blythes aren't really my favorite. I don't love their very, very simple face-up style. Like, they just don't really have much makeup on. And they're just not my favorite. I just don't like the face molds that much. I was surprised by how few collaborations there were with Lolita fashion brands, though, considering that Blythe has been popular in Japan since like the early 2000s. And they're pretty associated in terms of aesthetic with like vintage, girly, soft styles. So I would have expected more Lolita fashion collaborations, but hopefully we see more in the future. And lastly, I want to talk about a very recent release, which is the Misako and Harmonia Bloom collaboration. Of course, Misako is technically not a Lolita brand, but we did talk about Manasama earlier, and I think Misako has been just as involved and influential in Lolita fashion as anyone can really be considered to be. So Harmonia Bloom is Good Smile Company's newest doll line. They are original dolls, though they have done plenty of collaborations with anime at this point, which makes sense considering Good Smile Company is mostly known for figures and Nendoroids. I believe this doll line started around 2019. I think it's kind of interesting that it exists because Good Smile does produce Blythe now, and it does feel like these 2 doll lines would be in direct competition with each other, given that they are both, dolls with large heads, smaller bodies, with detailed outfits, marketed more as like collector fashion dolls. But Harmonia Blooms do exist at a more significant price point than Blythe. They range from around 280 to 450 Canadian, where Blythes are usually around 2 to 300. Now, Harmonia Blooms are more complex dolls. They have a more complex joint system, I believe. They also have glass eyes. They do actually have official blank dolls, so blank faces and bodies that you can buy to customize however you want, where Blythe just does not have that at the moment. This year brought upon their first official collaboration with anything related to Lolita fashion, which was the collaboration with Misako Aoki, who I would be very surprised if you don't know if you're watching this video, but Misako is a Lolita fashion model who has been involved with modeling for Lolita since essentially the dawn of time. She has been a very influential figure in the community. This collaboration features 2 dolls influenced by Misako's personal style. These are not brand items in that they were not designed by like a Lolita fashion brand. They are kind of original outfits that exist for Harmonia Bloom, but they are reminiscent, I would say, of the stylings of Baby the Starshine Bright, Innocent World, maybe even a little bit of meta in there. Generally, though, I do feel like they represent the style of Lolita that Misako seems to wear, most often in her personal time. The other doll is supposed to be Misako herself. The brown-haired doll's name is Marie, and the blonde-haired doll's name is Louise. From what I can tell on Good Smile's website, only the pink set is available to buy on its own. If you want the red set, you have to buy the doll. These dolls are also pretty expensive. They are 52k yen, which I do think is really expensive, honestly, for this size of doll. Considering you can get similar levels of detail from dolls like Pullip and even Blythe if you like their face molds. So I'm not really sure what the justification behind the price is. I've seen other doll collectors saying they find Harmonias to be expensive, so I'm not sure if this is just like a me thing or if it's widely agreed upon. However, I do think Harmonias are very, very cute dolls. I really like these Misako collabs. They're not my style. Maybe the pink one is a bit more my style, but they're very pretty, and I do love the face ups done on these dolls. I want to also mention that this collaboration extended to a magazine called Dolly Bird, which is a doll focused and craft like for dolls focused magazine that releases twice a year in Japan. I'm very excited because I bought the Lolita edition that came out with this collaboration featured on the cover. So the magazine is going to feature like patterns and photography of dolls wearing Lolita fashion, and the patterns are of course for Lolita fashion style clothes for dolls. Very excited to get that. I do not sew, but I might try and figure out how to make a few things for Wraith over here, given that he wears Lolita fashion. That is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Slightly different for my channel to verge into doll exploration territory, but I do feel like they're so connected to Lolita fashion, and I did ask at some point if you guys wanted to see doll content, and many of you said yes. So for the doll collectors or those interested in dolls and Lolita, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and maybe learned something from it. If you have any dolls that you collect or would love to collect, please tell me about them in the comments. I would love to know. I also wanted to mention that I tried to do like a little bit of a twinning thing, like we're both wearing stripes and we both have headdresses and twin tails. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next one, but until then, bye bye.